Hello, this is Steve Ramona, your host for Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. I want to thank our sponsors, Infone, and with Infone, you can place your business on everybody's cell phone, turn their business into a web app, and with a click of a button, they'll have access to you 24/7. And also Pantheon.fm. Have you ever thought about monetizing and taking your podcast to the next level? Well, Pantheon can do that. Let us show you how. Reach out to Steve Ramona, the host, at infone.co/SR1, and I will go over with you how you can make your podcast really stand out. Let's enjoy the show. Thanks again, everybody. Welcome, everyone, to Doing Business with a Servant's Heart. This is your host, Steve Ramona, and I'm excited because this one word, gratitude, is part of what a servant's heart's about. And I've got the gratitude guy on here that speaks it, lives it, and most people need to do this, and I hope we can get this message across. Hey, David, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Steve. It's great to be here. I really appreciate you inviting me.
No, it's going to be fun. Gratitude, what does that mean to you?
Well, gratitude, you could go Webster's and look at the dictionary and it would say appreciating, showing appreciation and thankfulness. I look at something, it's a term that I use a lot in my talks and workshops and so forth. And I have a saying called gratitude turns what you have into enough. And so often we're focused on everything we don't have. I mean, I think back on an example of this. I've heard this in workshops before, the sliding car. The car focuses on the tree on the ice instead of all the open space, so it crashes into the tree. So we go where we focus. So instead of focusing on the tree, why aren't we focusing on the open space where the car can slide and not do any damage and so forth? So it really is about focusing on your blessings in abundance, as I said. And I think even though this is an old term, I just haven't come up with something better than the glass half full. Whoever invented that term, it's so true, because there sits the glass. Is it half full or half empty? To me, and I know this is true with you, Steve, it's always been half full. It's a better attitude. They say that two people go into the hospital with the same disease. The positive attitude lives, the negative attitude dies. And it's so connected to everything we do. So I just propose it as such a great mindset. And I call it an attitude of gratitude, a gratitude mindset, but really focusing on all that you have and not worrying about what you don't have. And it's interesting. I teach a module about your talent. And I said in the talent module, I say, make your strengths productive, make your weaknesses irrelevant. Do not worry about what you're not good at. Take what you're strong at. Excuse me. I can speak to 10,000 soldiers at our local military base down here, Fort Lewis McChord, but I can't draw a circle to save my life. So I'm not going to go take an art class. It doesn't do any good. I'm not good at art. So figure out what it is. But it's really, really long answer to a short question, really focusing on everything that you have in your life and not worrying about what you don't have.
Let's talk about actions with gratitude. Mindset's important, but we got to do the actions, correct?
And this is an excellent segue, because one of the things I talk about is, in fact, I have it right here, is an actual journal. So here's that gratitude guy's daily gratitude journal. And the reason why it's so important, there's a little saying in the front of the journal that says, if you think about it, it's like a dream. If you talk about it, it inspires you. But if you write about it, it empowers you. And there's something about writing. I am so grateful to Steve Ramona for inviting me to the podcast that plants it in your brain. So really, if we're going to get grateful and we have gratitude thoughts, that's important. It's great to think about it. It's great to talk about it, but there's something really powerful about writing it. And with all these keyboards, I'm sure we both have keyboards in front of us, and typing, that's fine. It's okay. But there's nothing quite like this, the gratitude journal, a pen, and then you write it down and it just plants it in your brain. And so there's different tools. You can have gratitude thoughts. You can have a gratitude journal. I do a gratitude walk every single day and do a video and put it on TikTok and YouTube and Instagram. And so there's all these different methods, but what it's doing is it's constantly flooding your brain with reminders of what you're grateful for. And it's just so easy to, again, go down the negative track. And I know this is something, to me, as a person that likes to think he practices what he preaches, every single day, there's 5 minutes in this gratitude journal as part of my power hour. No matter how I'm feeling, the minute I write takes about 5 to 6 minutes. I always feel better. Every single day, I always feel better because I'm talking about, I'm grateful for my health. I'm grateful for my two fantastic sons. I'm grateful for the view I get to see every single day, for my latte machine. It doesn't matter what it is, but it's just focusing on all those things. And it's just, again, back to the two people going to the hospital. It's just such a better way to go because you have this healthier, we were talking about your dad and my grandfather and these people that have lived a long time. One of the keys is mental health. And one of the keys to that mental health is focusing on all your blessings and abundance, which I bring up a lot because that's so important because it reinforces that every day.
What's the ROI on gratitude? I know it's a business show in a sense. I'm not a big fan of, but somebody gives gratitude. What can they see happen?
Well, I think ROI is a good point. You think in the business world, let's just use an example of happy employees. A lot of the talks I do, there's conventions, there's conferences, there's annual meetings, but I do a lot of corporate events. And one of the things that I talk to them about is if you have happy employees, you have better employees. You have lower turnover, higher retention, better results, and so forth. And so the whole message I try to get across, if you get people that are working side by side, and I know the pandemic changed some of that, but the more they get along, if you will, the more they have these two gears that mesh perfectly, the better productivity they're going to have. And so it's a really, really big part. And really ROI is a good way of looking at it because happy employees, it's like contented cows give more milk or something like that. But it's really, really true. And I've had different corporations where I got the sort of the response back that he helped change the culture of our corporation, helped by his talk and making people more grateful for themselves and each other. And really, the themselves piece is really important. Again, something back to you and I were talking offline earlier. To me, I don't know if I'd say by definition, but a lot of the reasons why people behave in these ways is because they don't feel good about themselves. And gratitude gives you such a great way to have a great connection. I contend the most important relationship you're ever going to have is with yourself. And how you do that, as I say, 5 minutes on that gratitude journal every day is a big part of it. And then I think generally you go have a great relationship with yourself, figure out what your talent is. I mentioned make your strengths productive, make your weaknesses irrelevant, find out what you're passionate about, and that'll probably lead you to your purpose. And I think that we are hardwired to find our purpose. So back to ROI, any company or anybody else that gets closer to their purpose means they're just going to have a higher level of productivity and impact. And so it's just amazing. I've watched people that change, and especially if they're consistent on the gratitude journal, they just have such a better attitude.
Yeah. Gratitude with people that are negative towards you.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a question I've been asked. How would you answer that?
I think that there's a million cliches in the world, and I've distilled it down to one that is my favorite, and that is you can lead a horse to water. I mean, there's only so much you can do. And somebody once said to me, well, I love your talking about that cliche, but you can salt the hay. So maybe they want to drink more water. And I've never heard that before. And I went, well, that's a good point. But really, there's only so much I think you can do. And I had an experience in my life before I became that gratitude guy about 10 years ago, late in life, managing these large stores like Nordstrom and then later Lowe's Home Improvement. So lots and lots of employees, 300, 400, 500, 600 employees. So I would say I became pretty adept at managing people and knowing how to effectively manage a big group of people. But I noticed that I said later on in life, both of my two sons, whether it's managing people or raising children, I think both those things require the same number one skill is you have to set a good example. And so if you don't set a good example, I always do this. You better not be smoking, but I'm over here smoking. It just doesn't work. And so I look at the example I set at those stores I ran and how my sons, and I had a unique situation because my sons were 4 and 14 when my wife passed away. So they were very young and I raised them by myself, and they're now 29 and 39, but I did the best to set the best example that I could. And so I think for those people that are negative, there's not a lot you can do except set the best example. And I've heard this example, you can't learn to ride a bike by reading a book. You got to get out there and do it. So you want to set the best example. You want to write in the gratitude journal. You want to go out and ride the bike to show them how to do it. And then if people come along and see the benefits of it, that's great. But some people won't, and it's okay. and that, like somebody once said, the best word there is next, and so you go on to the next person. And if a person doesn't want to, there's just not much you can do about it. And I have a brother that has some mental health issues. And years ago, I went to the psychiatrist, and I'll just never forget this. And this is probably 30 or 40 years ago. And I said, can you tell me how I can help my brother or something? He just looks at me and says, David, you can't give somebody else their reasons to live. So it was so impactful. And not that he was suicidal, but he had some issues. And I thought it's kind of the same thing. You can't give somebody else their reasons to be grateful, to show appreciation, to be thankful. All I can do is set a great example, write in the gratitude journal every day, give them these exercises. In my talks, I have 5 or 6 exercises I do that really reinforce something that they can take with them after the talk. So I just think there's just certain people. And then I think, gosh, I see myself, and I can already tell this with you, Steve, such a positive person. But there's just some people, we make a choice every single day. We get out of bed. We can get out of the left side or the right side, positive or negative, up or down, grateful or ungrateful. There's some people who are just miserable people. I mean, and but they choose that. And it's just, they choose to not be happy, or, the whole thing. And in fact, I had a father, unfortunately took his own life. He was a very, pretty well-known attorney. But he was crazy. I'd say, good morning, Dad. He'd go, what's good about it? Like, who talks like that? And then I'd say, well, it's sunny out. He goes, it's going to rain tomorrow. I go, so it is a choice. So I think setting the best example, I'm a huge proponent of the gratitude journal, as you can tell, setting that example, extending it as many ways as you can, always showing appreciation, always showing thankfulness, always letting people know how much you appreciate them in your life and what they do for you. And if the people could come along with that, great. If some of them can't, then as I mentioned to you earlier, I just feel sorry for them.
Yeah. That leads to this great comments is you work with companies, there might be a business owner or a manager listening to this. They have that, the cliche, one bad apple ruins the bundle,
right,
the bushel.
Right.
So how's the gratitude guy help with that, working with a company? You get that one person that's like your dad, that's very negative. How do you help them handle that?
I think, and again, having been in that situation and being a part of training and learning and development and so forth at Nordstrom and Lowe's and so on, I think you set this great example, as I said earlier, about managing people or raising kids. You do the workshops, you do all those things, you put everything in place, you see the transition, and you see the people that can really make a difference. And they're telling you that, and think, well, I never looked at it this way. This is so helpful. But there's always, back to the one bad apple, there's always going to be that person that, you give them all the training, you give everything. I can look in the mirror and say, I gave them every opportunity to succeed. And if they don't, they probably have to be extricated from the company, because because there's people that are toxic, and they can spread a lot of poison around the company and infect a lot of people. So, but I think as a company, or as a manager, or as a leader, I have to look in the mirror and know that I did everything I could to expose them to the right format, to the right, mindset, if you will. And most people will get it, but if one or two don't, I think there's probably time to part company.
Yeah, and it ruins the culture, which you mentioned earlier. You have those toxic people, and you're trying to build this culture of happiness, fun, whatever that is, and you got somebody derailing that.
Yeah.
It spirals the company. And I love that you help them with that. It's not an easy conversation, but in the long run, it's a great conversation.
Absolutely.
You've given us a lot of nuggets so far. So somebody's probably thinking, how do I get a hold of David? So how can they get a hold of you?
Well, thank you, Steve. A couple of things. My main website is thatgratitudeguy.com. And you can get my books and journals and a lot of things there too. Also, I hear from people a lot that email me. So it's david@thatgratitudeguy.com, which I really enjoy having some of this back and forth, and people ask me questions, and then they will buy the gratitude journal too. But there's some of those, like, for instance, you just asked a good question earlier, Steve, and somebody said to me one day, what do I have to be grateful for when my best friend just died? And I answered him, and that's a good thing. And sometimes, just in going through that, there's steps. If you break your leg, you're a runner and you break your leg, you don't just get up tomorrow and start running again. You got to get a cast, and then you got to get it healed. And then the cast comes off, and then maybe you stand up, and then you walk a little bit. And then at some point you jog, and eventually you come back to running again. So I think something like that is important to know, that there's steps to things. So people can reach out to me there. I also do a lot of coaching, and my coaching website is davidgeorgebrookecoaching.com. And I really enjoy coaching people because they come up to me after the talks and want to know, how can I help my apply some of these principles that you talked about today, which are really important. So, but thatgratitudeguy.com, David at thatgratitudeguy.com, and davidgeorgebrookecoaching.com. Also, another thing people like is I'm a big proponent of YouTube because we become such a video world. And if you go to David George Brooke on video, or on YouTube, 3 words, David George Brooke, and you can subscribe. And I'm approaching 2,000 videos on YouTube. So there's something for everybody. And I have my talks on there. I have my gratitude walks. I have all sorts of different things that I've done in the past that are presentations, so you can see that you can get something kind of live as well. And but that's probably the best way to connect. And I love hearing from people, because it's something you and I talk about, Steve. It's just, when you get to help people, when you get to change somebody's trajectory, I get emotional just thinking about it. And people say, I'm so glad I came to your talk. You changed my life. And when you hear that, that's better than any job I've ever had in my life. It's just so neat to know you impacted somebody that way.
No, I love it. And I'm going to do a favor, because I love gratitude. We've had 2 meetings. It's all we talked about. I'm going to give a $20 Amazon gift card to the first 3 people that reach out to you that mention this podcast.
Excellent.
So listeners, when you reach out, mention the podcast, David will connect me with you, and I'll get your email, and I'll send you a $20 Amazon gift card. That's how I'm putting my money where my mouth is about gratitude and being grateful for David being on the show. And see how gratitude can fit into all this. So I'm going to do that. Make sure you reach out and mention the podcast. But I do want to ask this question. It's a great question for you. What does servant leadership mean to you?
I think it's all about putting other people in front of you. I think at least that's what it's always meant to me. I love the statements, if you want to help yourself, help other people. And people that get too caught up in their own little world, they don't understand what happens. And I don't like to say don't understand, but I guess I'd put it in this way. Try helping somebody, try volunteering at your church, try going to a food bank, try going and helping somebody that's got some homeless issues or whatever, and see what happens. And I think for me, I felt that I really got the servant leadership piece in spades once I became a speaker, because going through the steps at those big corporations, and it's all sorts of money, and it's corporate jets, and it's flying around here, and it's doing all those kinds of things. And yet for somebody to say, you changed my life, and I'll even say to them, so thank you so much. And they come up and they want to give me a hug, and they want to take their picture with me, and they want to buy more gratitude journals. By the way, that's a very generous gift of yours. The gratitude journals are $20. So it works actually just perfect. But the thing is just to see them, and just even when somebody gives you a hug, and I'd say, what was the thing that you took away the most? So they'll talk about the exercise. I love the story you told about Connor. I love the story about the $20 bill. That really helped me, because that really reinforced what I was thinking about. I love the little card that we wrote down those things we're grateful for, and things like that. So I think, to me, it's all about not being about yourself, and really, really helping people. And it's so interesting, because the more you do it, the more you help other people, and the more you get feedback, like so many things in life, the more you want to do it. I mean, if I had anything that I am frustrated about on a regular basis, is to continually reach more and more people, more talks, more presentations, more workshops, more videos. And because the response is so great. So to me, it's all about being something bigger than yourself. That's how I see that.
What I'm hearing too, and I want the listeners to remember, is you're talking about sharing gratitude as much as you can, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Correct.
And tell, what's that look like?
I think it's again, I keep coming back to the 2 words I use: an attitude of gratitude and a gratitude mindset. And again, it doesn't mean that there aren't, I share it all the time, because anything is so much better than when it's shared. And one of the things I talk about is we do a little exercise at the end on the module called Sharing Gratitude. And I have people use their phone. And so they take the phone and they text somebody to tell them how grateful they are to have them in their life. And the responses that we get back are just tremendous. And so I'll use some of those as an example. So to me, it's like anything in life, when you get really, and again, you and I talk about this offline, when you get some really good news or bad news, what's the first thing you want to do? You want to share it with somebody. And frankly, the first person you call is probably your best friend or the closest person in your life. And then that goes out and ripples from there. But there's something about it. So to me, sharing in itself is just so much more fulfilling. I tell a story how I had these 10 buddies of mine that were going to go skydiving. This was in the late 70s. And so they're all excited. I make the reservation and everything. And so then on Monday or Tuesday, one or two of the guys canceled. It was going to be on Saturday. And then on Wednesday, a couple more called, I think I have a sore throat. I went, boy. Anyway, so I walk into the skydiving place at 10 o'clock on Saturday. The guy looks at me and he goes, I have a reservation for Brooke. And he looks over each of my shoulders. He goes, where's all your friends? I said, I don't have any. Nobody came except me. So I went by myself because everybody chickened out. I get the certificate at the end, little George Brooke, skydiver, walk to my car and I'm like talking to myself, well, this is great. This is really great. I'm proud of you. This is really cool, and I go, there was nobody to share it with, and so it's like the sharing thing is so important because you can expand that message and then it sort of bounces your message back to you to make sure you see that it's resonating, which I think is really important.
That's so well said. And that's a great story. You still do it even without your friends. Well, we're running out of time here. I want to thank you for being on the show. Gratitude is part of a servant's heart. That's one of the actions that people have, and you're a big part of that. Reach out to him, get your $20 Amazon gift card, get his gratitude book, or just go on and get it, because that's essential for that. And if you're a business owner or run a business or a manager or a director, reach out to David. Can you imagine him speaking to your employees for an hour and how much he could change your culture? So I beg you, reach out to David. Can I ask one more favor?
Sure.
Can you you've left so much golden tips that people can use. What's one more tip you can leave them for their journey in this life?
Absolutely. And you just made me think of something too, Steve. You can go directly to Amazon, speaking of a gift card, that Gratitude Guys Daily Gratitude Journal. You can get it directly from Amazon too, if you want to cut out the middleman, so to speak, but get Steve's offer, but you can get it directly to Amazon too. I forgot to mention. This is what I would leave the listeners with, which I just feel so strongly about, is that people say to me, what they want to challenge me, like, well, what if it works? Or when I lost my friend, what do I have to be grateful for? And I say, look, here's the thing. Just try it. I understand not everybody's going to spend 5 minutes a day like I do. So, but at the very least, try this. Write one word down every single day. Just one thing you're grateful for. Try that for a week and see how that works. If that works, then try writing a sentence. Just, I am so grateful to Steve for inviting me to his podcast, whatever it might be. And then if you see an impact in a week, 7 or 8 days of doing that, then maybe write a couple of sentences, 2 or 3 things you're grateful for. To me, almost at the top of my list every day is my health. Without your health, you have nothing. And so then it's my 2 sons, and it goes down to my family and friends and the different things I feel very fortunate to have. And then try it, and eventually you'll get up to maybe even writing the 5 minutes. It's just, the impact is unbelievable. So at the very least, somebody once said to me, it's better to do less than you hope for than nothing at all. So even starting with just a word, just a sentence, just a couple of sentences, try that, and then look in that mirror and see if that doesn't make a little difference in your head. And I think you'll be very pleasantly surprised. You'll see that makes a big difference.